Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. Huo Yuhao's face had become pale after releasing a series of explosive attacks. The 3 soul cores in his body were already operating at maximum capacity. Even though he made it seem easy, Huo Yuhao had already expended more than 50% of his soul power. This was something he had not experienced after becoming an ultimate Doluo. Good. Di Qian exclaimed loudly. He swung his left fist forward as he released a wave of spatial power. An almighty intent was released at that instant. A gigantic black dragon appeared right behind Huo Yuhao as it opened its mouth to devour him. Once again, Di Qian ripped apart space as he transformed into a streak of silver before vanishing. Powerful binding and corrosive forces started to infiltrate Huo Yuhao's body. However, they were ineffective, as they were instantly frozen due to the effects of his absolute zero. Just when Huo Yuhao was about to break out from the head of the dragon, he suddenly spun himself in mid-air as multicolored light grazed past his body. Huo Yuhao felt that side of his body turn numb. The insane energy within the light was actually able to spin his entire body around. The absolute zero temperature was somehow unable to affect Di Qian's attack. At this instant, Huo Yuhao finally learned how powerful the dragon god's claw was. There seemed to be some sort of extremely frightening absolute power within it, in addition to pulses of elemental energy. Huo Yuhao specialized in ice-type elemental energy. However, the dragon god's claw seemed to possess energy from all elements. Water, fire, earth, wind, light, darkness, and spatial-type energy fluctuations appeared at the same time. In fact, they were released in an extremely chaotic and explosive manner. Di Qian was not trying to land a heavy blow on Huo Yuhao. Instead, he focused on the speed of his attack. In addition, he was able to fuse spatial power and the power of darkness perfectly. Di Qian managed to time his attack such that he struck Huo Yuhao when he had just expended a lot of energy and was catching his breath. There was no lock-on, or any sort of warning. Hence, Huo Yuhao was ultimately unable to evade the attack. Because of how half of his body was numb, Huo Yuhao had to activate the 3 soul cores in his body to fend off the frightening power of the dragon god. The dragon head, which had consumed him, had already disintegrated. Huo Yuhao took a step forward as he entered a crack in the space before him. He was able to avoid the subsequent attacks coming his way. Space flickered as 2 individuals continually appeared and collided with one another. Flashes of light illuminated the surrounding air as both Di Qian and Huo Yuhao separated from one another every time after they collided. If one were to look up at the sky above the Great Star Do Forest, one would see a sky which was completely contorted. The colors in the sky were rapidly changing as they flickered between radiant golden, intense black, and rainbow colors. Even though they could have been separated by tens of thousands of meters, every single soul beast in the Great Star Do Forest did not dare move at this moment. Within the core region of the Great Star Do Forest, the Emerald Swan, the Myriad Demon King, the Bear Lord, and the Scarlet King were all gathered here. They all seemed to be reacting to the commotion above them differently. The Bear Lord continually released and retracted its dark golden terraclaws as it glared ferociously. On the other hand, the Myriad Demon King seemed to be thinking about something. Meanwhile, the Scarlet King and the Emerald Swan were very worried about Di Qian. After all, they were separated by 10,000 meters, and the 4 of them were extremely powerful soul beasts. Even though they were heavily suppressed by the effects of Huo Yuhao and Di Qian's battle, they were still capable of moving. The Scarlet King bellowed, "Who is that? I don't know of anyone who is able to fight with the beast god for such a long period of time." The Emerald Swan's eyes seemed to be sparkling as it replied, "I think Di Qian is fighting with a human. I just don't know who he is. I only realized that when I saw Di Qian ascending into the sky with a human. Impossible. How is a human able to possess enough power to rival Di Qian?" The Scarlet King did not believe what the Emerald Swan had just said. The Bear Lord sniggered, "Is it the Evil Eye Tyrant again?" The Myriad Demon King scolded him, can you please use your brain? There's no way he can come here right now. He's probably busy trying to prepare himself for the catastrophe, which is about to hit him. Unless he has reached the 800,000-year cultivation level, he would have no chance against Di Qian. The Bear Lord grunted. So what if he has managed to make a breakthrough? Bullshit, the Myriad Demon King replied. However, at the very next instant, its body started to tremble. All four savage beasts looked up into the sky at the same time as an expression of disbelief formed on their faces. The originally warped sky suddenly became clear as a mystical streak of light flashed before their eyes. Is that really the evil emperor? The Emerald Swan gasped. The Myriad Demon King's eyes widened in disbelief. That's spacetime light. The sky above them had already transformed into a different world. The eye of the Azura above Huo Yuhao's forehead was radiating a deep and frightening glow. At that instant, it seemed as though it had come alive. Di Qian, who was not too far away from Huo Yuhao, seemed to be moving very slowly. The surrounding space and time seemed to have become frozen. Huo Yuhao's spiritual power exploded like a geyser as Di Qian's human form started to give way. Scales started to appear on his human skin. Initially, those scales still seemed to be radiant and shiny. However, very soon, the light on their surfaces started to fade away as they started to fall off of his body. At this instant, Di Qian's eyes widened in disbelief. His body started to tremble as it stared at Huo Yuhao. Spacetime light. How are you able to use spacetime light? Di Qian could not believe what he was seeing. As the two of them continued to collide in the air and unleash their demigod abilities, the Dragon God's Claw and the Morning Dew Dagger, Di Qian had managed to land another blow on Huo Yuhao. However, his attack was blocked by Huo Yuhao's absolute zero. Following which, Di Qian saw Huo Yuhao's Eye of the Azura release a dark blue light. A powerful streak of dark blue light was suddenly released from the depth of his pupils. When this streak of dark blue light appeared, it was almost as if time had been frozen. Di Qian, who was about to go after Huo Yuhao, was practically immobilized in mid-air. The surrounding spacetime was contracting at an incredible rate. The dark blue light seemed to be moving very slowly. However, during its movement, the sky and earth had become dark blue. At that very instant, everything seemed to have become dark blue. Spacetime light. This was the Evil Eye Tyrant's biggest trump card. Back then, it was only able to escape from Di Qian with this powerful ability. This was effectively spacetime power, which originated from one source of spiritual power. Spacetime power was able to strip the source of spiritual power from all living things. This would cause their source of spiritual power to deteriorate and eventually be destroyed. Back then, even though Di Qian was able to severely injure the Evil Eye Tyrant, he was also hit by the spacetime light. The Beast God took close to 1,000 years before finally recovering from that blow. It was apparent how powerful spacetime light was. This time, the spacetime light had reappeared. However, Huo Yuhao was now the person releasing this ability. Di Qian could sense that Huo Yuhao's spacetime light was, in fact, a lot more powerful than the Evil Eye Tyrant's. The reason was that Huo Yuhao's spiritual power was stronger than that of the Evil Eye Tyrant. After all, Huo Yuhao possessed spiritual power which could rival that of a demigod. His spiritual soul core was already at the demigod level, a level which even Di Qian could not attain after cultivating for 700,000 years. Di Qian finally learned that Huo Yuhao's power did not only come from the Morning Dew Dagger. Di Qian finally understood everything. He realized that there was only one possible reason why Huo Yuhao was able to acquire the spacetime light power. Huo Yuhao must have gone to look for the Evil Eye Tyrant before finding Di Qian. In addition, he must have made the Evil Eye Tyrant his soul ring. No wonder he's so confident of defeating me. That's right. With 3 soul cores, a demigod-level spiritual soul core, a demigod-level Morning Dew Dagger, his absolute zero aura, and the sigh of the frozen goddess. There's no way he would not be confident of defeating me. Di Qian's pupils had already taken on several colors at this instant. He was mustering all the energy his dragon god's claw could give him. He was trying to stop his source of spiritual power from deteriorating in the space-time light. However, at this instant, Di Qian saw a small blue light in Huo Yuhao's hand. The light was not very intense. In fact, it was wedged under his fingernail. However, Di Qian revealed a look of despair after seeing it. Following which, Huo Yuhao's pupils took on a dark color. He closed his eyes, including his eye of the Azura. The blue light in his hand suddenly became very intense, as it became even brighter than the glow from the space-time light. Because Di Qian was pinned down by the space-time light, there was no way he could stop Huo Yuhao. Right now, Huo Yuhao was practically one with heaven and earth. Suddenly, Huo Yuhao waved his arm as the blue light instantly retracted to form a crystalline blue dagger. The dagger was released into the air as it formed a beautiful blue parabolic path, which flickered across the sky. The fear in Di Qian's eyes was apparent. As it watched the layers of space that were crushed and penetrated by the dagger, his eyes widened in disbelief. The dagger seemed to contain all of Huo Yuhao's spiritual power. Di Qian could sense the demigod aura from the little dagger. Di Qian lowered its head in despair. He knew that there was no point in watching the dagger, since he was unable to avoid the dagger. The beast god looked at the forest beneath it longingly. He really did not want to leave the forest in such a manner. Dragon god, it seems like I won't be able to complete the task which you have given me. A bitter smile formed on Di Qian's face. Perhaps, this was the look one would give after one was liberated from his or her responsibilities. Di Qian's body started to tremble lightly. At the very next instant, he felt as though its body was flying. The dagger was sending his body backward as Di Qian smashed through layers of space. The other world seemed to be beckoning him. The four savage beasts could not believe what they were seeing. Is the number one soul beast in the world really going to depart from this world? Is this the end for the beast god who ruled the great star Do forest for hundreds of thousands of years? At this instant, the sky was no longer in its warped and contorted state. The Emerald Swan was now able to tell who Di Qian was fighting. Huo Yuhao. The person who created the Spirit Pagoda. Why is it him? Why does he want to kill Di Qian? When did he become so powerful? The Emerald Swan could not understand what was happening. At the same time, she was very saddened to see what had happened. Di Qian. After releasing that dagger, Huo Yuhao had to stay where he was for a couple of seconds. The blow itself had expended too much of his energy. Crying Guanyin, Guanin's tear. This was the Tang sect's most powerful hidden weapon technique. Huo Yuhao did not try to form Guanin's tears, because he knew that a normal Guanin's tear would never be able to destroy Di Qian. Instead, he used his ghost carving blade, the second blade Rong Nianbing had given him. I don't remember being penetrated by any weapon or attack. Hundreds of thousands of years of memories started to stream through Di Qian's head. Right now, everything seemed to have lost its meaning after he had been defeated by Huo Yuhao. When Di Qian was still young, he had been doted by the dragon god. Afterward, the dragon god had fallen and transformed into two dragon kings. Following which, dragons started to fall as a race. Everything until now was running through his head like a tape recording. As his life energy started to flow away, Di Qian simply closed his eyes. The sensation of being liberated was extremely calming. Even though it was a little disappointing to end just like this, it was ultimately the end. Beast God. Suddenly, Huo Yuhao's voice entered Di Qian's head. Huo Yuhao's chilling voice woke him up from his dreamy state. Di Qian opened his eyes, and was shocked to realize that his life energy was not fading away at a very fast rate. Why is that? Di Qian immediately looked down at the wound in his chest. This isn't a fatal wound. Everyone at Di Qian's level knew that attacking the head was the easiest way to take someone's life. However, Huo Yuhao, for some strange reason, had not chosen to attack his head. This was something which was hard to comprehend. Even though the blade intent and the space-time light were ravaging his body, Di Qian should still be able to survive the blow. Di Qian did not believe that Huo Yuhao had made a mistake. This was something which would never happen. Why? Di Qian asked Huo Yuhao. Huo Yuhao smiled. I only want to defeat you, and never wanted to kill you. Have you forgotten? I have made a promise to never voluntarily kill another soul beast. Then what about the evil emperor? Di Qian replied condescendingly. Huo Yuhao answered regretfully, it wanted to kill me. I had no choice but to retaliate. Di Qian revealed a bitter expression and said, what a lucky retaliation that was. In the end, you have won. Huo Yuhao nodded. At this moment, he was very relaxed. He nodded at Di Qian and said, goodbye, beast god. Perhaps this will be the last time we see each other. However, I still want to thank you for saving my life back then. Without understanding some of your abilities, I would never be able to possess the power I have today. Goodbye, and take care. After finishing his sentence, Huo Yuhao waved his hand and disappeared into the space before him. As he watched Huo Yuhao disappear, the bitter expression on Di Qian's face intensified. The beast god had realized how wonderful the sense of liberation was. Without liberation, it meant that he still had to fulfill its duties. Di Qian slowly landed back in the great star Do forest from the sky. The four savage beasts stared blankly at him as they watched him land. They had no idea what had happened up there. Even though Di Qian was injured, his aura was still powerful and intimidating. The Bear King, who was starting to harbor some selfish intentions, immediately lowered his head in fear. He was worried that Di Qian might learn about his disloyal thoughts. Di Qian waved his hand at them as he moved to the side of the Lake of Life. The four savage beasts stared at each other before retreating. He did not want to kill me. Ha ha. He did not want to kill me. Di Qian was overwhelmed by a multitude of emotions. He was laughing and crying at the same time. At this instant, silver light started to form and move around Di Qian. He did not kill you. Even if he wanted to kill you, there is no way that you would die just like this. You still have a responsibility you have to shoulder. An authoritative voice rang beside Di Qian. Di Qian was instantly awakened by the voice as he kneeled down on the ground. It was precisely because he had no intention to kill you that I had chosen not to intervene. If not, I would risk ending my closed-door cultivation prematurely to kill him. Di Qian seemed to have regained its composure as he asked, but, Master, why did you not stop him from leaving? He possesses the power of destiny. That is something our entire Great Star Do Forest needs. You also need this power. That mysterious voice replied plainly, the power of destiny belongs to the Doluo continent. It is not something that anyone can just take away as they please. He is going to leave this world very soon. When he leaves, the power of destiny will naturally be returned to the Great Star Do Forest. Di Qian, I know you have been very lonely. It must have been very hard for you all these years. Master. Di Qian continued to kneel on the ground. Just bear with it for another 10,000 years. By then, I will have finished my cultivation and recovered from all of my injuries. When I return to this world, you can go and travel around as you please. Yes. Thank you, Master. The silver light slowly faded as everything became normal again. 10,000 years might be an infinitely long time for a human, however, it was nothing for Di Qian, who had already spent 800,000 years cultivating. In fact, there was now a clear deadline for him to anticipate. He could not help but reveal a look of genuine excitement and anticipation. A streak of silver light flickered across the sky as Huo Yuhao appeared out of nowhere. The sky and earth had seemed to become completely different at this instant. Huo Yuhao could sense how his spiritual sea was bubbling and becoming stronger. The 6 spirits in his body were also cheering in excitement. He could also sense how the soul power in his body was transforming and taking on a special aura. These changes were starting to surface from his body. Di Qian was like a mountain and a barrier for him. Now that the barrier was no longer able to restrain him, Huo Yuhao had made his final breakthrough. Huo Yuhao looked up at the sky as he opened his arms wide. At this moment, he felt that heaven and earth had become different. His spirit seemed to be rising and ascending into a different world. You have succeeded. Congratulations, Yuhao. A gentle voice rang in his ear. A faint golden glow started to descend from the sky as it took form before Huo Yuhao's eyes. Rong Nianbing was still wearing the same outfit, and was happy to see that Huo Yuhao had finally done it. He was clear how difficult the path he had taken was. Huo Yuhao had conquered more difficult challenges than he had. Teacher. Huo Yuhao respectfully kowtowed to Rong Nianbing. It was only now that he felt that he was sufficiently qualified to call the person before him teacher. Rong Nianbing smiled and said, "To be honest, I'm not well suited to be your teacher. Your teacher should be someone else. I am just someone who took advantage of the situation and found a treasure. If not for me, you might not have had to suffer so many tribulations. Nonetheless, you have managed to pull through all of them. Are you ready?" "Yes." Huo Yuhao nodded fervently. Of course he was ready. He was going to find his beloved wife. There was no longer anything that could stop his heart. He was raring to fly to the other world. "Wutong, I wonder if you are doing fine in that world." Rong Nianbing nodded as he revealed a serious and solemn expression. He spoke, "I am the god of emotions. Humans possess a multitude of emotions: happiness, anger, sorrow, and bliss. There is an abundance of unification and separation in a human's world. There are always positive and negative emotions. What you have to control is the power of emotions. It is now appropriate for me to share more details about our world with you. The Doluo continent, the place where you have lived for your entire life, is a planet. Other than the Doluo continent, there are several other planets in this world. All living things on these different planets possess some form of psychokinetic energy. When this energy rises above their bodies, they collectively form a special place. While this place is beyond the realm of planets, it is still intimately tied to them. It is like a space carved out independently by humans. Hence, humans are usually the only entity allowed to enter this realm. This place is called the God Realm. The God Realm houses all the individuals who have exceeded the limitations imposed by their planets. Hence, they can be called gods. I am an example of a god. Tang Wutong's father is also another example. To be more precise, I don't belong to your planet, the Doluo continent. On the other hand, Tang Wutong's father came from the Doluo continent. In fact, you should have heard his name before. He is called Tang San. After hearing Tang San's name, Huo Yuhao could not help but shudder. He never would have expected the woman he loved to be the daughter of the founder of the Tang sect. After seeing how Huo Yuhao's jaw had dropped, Rong Nianbing could not help but chuckle. Tang San came from the Doluo continent. He has always been concerned about it. Tang Wutong is his daughter. Tang San loves his daughter a lot, and hence allowed her to come to the Doluo continent to train. A god is not allowed to intervene with what happens in the world of the humans. This is true for all planets. Hence, even Tang San can only send his daughter to the continent and seal the part of her memory about the God Realm. This was the reason why both of you were able to meet each other. Tang San had always been observing you. That was why he placed a seal on Tang Wutong. In fact, he has been able to positively influence your development through the little bit of divine sense he has placed in his daughter. Some of the tribulations you went through were actually evaluative measures Tang San had put in place on behalf of the God Realm. If not, you would have had a much easier time. Do you remember the Yin-Yang Love Querying Valley? That was one of the tests, which was used to evaluate your suitability to become a god. It was then when I saw the potential in you, and decided that I wanted you to take over my godly seat. Because Tang San was bogged down by some things which were happening in the God Realm, and was unable to monitor you closely, I was able to sneak in and get you to inherit my godly seat. Hence, you shouldn't blame him for what he has done to you. Without the challenges he laid in your way, you would not have been able to achieve what you have today. In fact, he was a much more influential figure in your development than me. Huo Yuhao listened to Rong Nianbing's explanation, as he allowed past events to stream through his head. Some of the things which used to be unclear started to make a lot more sense now. No wonder I was attacked by the powerful golden figure back at the Yin-Yang Love Querying Valley. No wonder Wutong has a seal on her which stops me from being intimate with her. No wonder Wutong disappeared after returning to the Clear Sky sect. Legend had it that the Clear Sky sect was also started by Tang San, the founder of the Tang sect. Now that everything was falling into place, Huo Yuhao finally understood everything. Tang Wutong was actually Tang San's daughter. Tang San, his future father-in-law, had been testing him all this while. Rong Nianbing continued, even within the God realm, gods are divided into different tiers. The 5 most powerful gods within the God realm form the judicial committee. Among them are 2 god kings, the god of kindness and the god of evil. There are also 3 enforcers, the god of Azura, the god of annihilation, and the god of life. Tang San happens to be one of the enforcers, the god of Azura. As of now, the 2 god kings have gone to another planet to be reborn. They wanted to experience the ever-changing human life. Right now, the new god kings are still in their development stage. Hence, Tang San could be said to be the most powerful god in the god realm. He is essentially the one managing the god realm now. Beyond the judicial committee, the most powerful gods are Tier 1 gods. I am one of the Tier 1 gods. Because of how my power of emotions is intertwined with the abilities of the god of kindness and the god of evil, I am stronger than the average Tier 1 god. However, I still pale in comparison to Tang San. After the Tier 1 gods, we have Tier 2 gods and Tier 3 gods. There is also a group of individuals called the God Realm Patrol Hunters. All of them come together to form the God Realm. Because of the space limitation within the God Realm, only individuals who possess a godly seat can enter the God Realm. A person can only be given a godly seat after he or she has successfully passed the evaluation set by the Judicial Committee, and when a godly seat is available. He or she would then have to make a breakthrough and ascend into the God Realm. This is precisely what you have to do now. After finishing his sentence, Rong Nianbing paused for a while. He knew that Huo Yuhao would take some time to digest what he had just said. Huo Yuhao seemed to understand what he said in no time. After all, he had always been an intelligent person. Before long, a clear picture of the God Realm started to form in his head. So the God Realm is basically a world that is built above the Doluo continent. It is a world which houses individuals who have exceeded the limitations of our world. Rong Nianbing smiled and asked, "Do you understand?" Huo Yuhao nodded. Rong Nianbing continued, "I'm only telling you all this because I want to give you one more chance to make a decision. After all, I have taken advantage of Tang San's situation and not done as much as what he has done for you. You can now make a decision whether you still want to inherit my godly seat. Of course, you are also allowed to choose to inherit Tang San's godly seat. He really wants someone to help him share his workload. I can also pass what you feel about his godly seat to him. I'm sure he would be very happy to hear that. Besides, I'm sure it will help you get back your wife." Huo Yuhao shook his head. "There's no need for that. I still wish to inherit your godly seat. As a man of my word, I ought to keep my word. Besides, I also should not rely on my father-in-law to find Wutong. Wouldn't that make me seem useless? Can I ask you to pass your godly seat to me?" Rong Nianbing revealed a pleased smile. "All right. But I still want to remind you about one thing. Life in the God realm is extremely lonely and boring. Even Tier 1 gods like me can't leave the God realm whenever I please. In fact, we can never stay in the world of humans for an extended period of time. Unless we have passed our godly seat to another suitable individual, we can never leave the God realm after entering it. The main reason why both Tang San and I want to pass our godly seat to you is that both of us want to travel around the world. Both of us want to see if there are any other God realms in distant planets and worlds." Huo Yuhao's determination did not seem to waver after hearing Rong Nianbing's clarification. He spoke resolutely, "I am willing to inherit your godly seat. No matter what the price was, he wanted to go and find Tang Wutong. This was something that would never change. Rong Nianbing exclaimed, "All right. I have already laid out all the things you should know. Since you are still willing to take up my godly seat, let's begin." Following which, he raised his hands as two lights, one blue and one red, surged and rose around him. Huo Yuhao could sense how his ultimate ice soul power was activated by the lights released by Rong Nianbing. At this instant, Huo Yuhao felt the familiar sensation of becoming one with heaven and earth when he had released the ghost carving blade earlier. Rong Nianbing waved his hand as the scenery around him started to fade and become illusory. In the blink of an eye, both of them were transported to a sky full of stars. Rong Nianbing continued to release icy blue and fiery red light into Huo Yuhao's body. At this instant, Huo Yuhao could sense how his entire body was being enhanced. The three soul cores in his body were rotating at an unprecedented speed. Every time a circulation was completed, an immense soul power fluctuation would be released. Streaks of light started to fly through the air as a mysterious intent started to form on Huo Yuhao's face. Streaks of starry light began to descend from above as they landed on his body. His surroundings started to become warped as Huo Yuhao's past started to run itself like a tape recording within his spiritual world. It started from how he was ill-treated within the residence of the White Tiger Duke. Following which, it moved on to the part when he met the Sky Dream Iceworm and absorbed a million-year soul ring. Then, it showed him how he met Tang Wutong at Shrek Academy. Everything that had happened to him in the Doluo continent was appearing before his eyes again. He was able to experience his entire life in this short moment. After a short while, Huo Yuhao opened his eyes again, only to see a smiling Rong Nianbing. As he stared at Rong Nianbing, the color in Huo Yuhao's pupils seemed to have become fainter. It was almost as though he had aged, and had comprehended more about the laws of the universe. The energy and power in his body were undergoing a complete transformation. His three soul cores started to melt as the ultimate ice, spiritual power, and spatial power in his body started to fuse together. A brand new power was forming. His spiritual sea started to take on a pure golden color. His spiritual sense was becoming illusory, as the divine sense he had once detected from Electrolux started to expand from his spiritual sea. Everything about him was being enhanced at this instant. Rong Nianbing raised his hands as a mystical crown appeared at the top of his head. The crown had two colors, icy blue and fiery red. There seemed to be some mystical fluctuations radiating from the top of the crown. Huo Yuhao immediately felt the emotions within him, happiness, anger, sorrow, bliss, love, hate, and disgust, changing and activating. The morning dew dagger on Huo Yuhao's body transformed into a streak of blue light, and returned to Rong Nianbing. Rong Nianbing's 7 daggers represented the 7 different kinds of emotions. In order to hand his godly seat over to Huo Yuhao, Rong Nianbing had to first take his power back from him. The 7 different daggers represented the water, fire, earth, wind, light, darkness, and spatial elements. These were the 7 daggers that belonged to Rong Nianbing, the god of emotions. Sigh of the frozen goddess, morning dew dagger. Roar of the flaming god, positive yang dagger. Whisper of the free wind, arrogant sky dagger. Melody of the awakening earth, immortality dagger. The brilliant 6 lights, jade pearl dagger. The all-penetrating dawn, holy radiance dagger. Curse of eternal damnation, devil-devouring dagger. These 7 godly daggers were radiating 7 different colors, which also happened to represent the 7 different kinds of emotions. Suddenly, the morning dew dagger transformed into an icy blue light image as it shot towards Huo Yuhao. Huo Yuhao felt his body shudder as the blue light flashed before him. A melancholic emotion was stirred within his heart. This was sorrow, one of the 7 emotions. Following which, the fiery red positive yang dagger carried its burning flames and flew towards Huo Yuhao. An intense rage appeared in Huo Yuhao's heart. This was anger. Next, the green blade flew towards Huo Yuhao. This was the arrogant sky dagger, the whisper of the free wind. Huo Yuhao could sense the happiness in his heart. Following which, a long yellow dagger shot towards Huo Yuhao. It was the immortality dagger, a dagger which contained the power of earth. The yellow light fused into Huo Yuhao's body and gave him bliss. A ray of silver light was emitted from the jade pearl dagger. The brilliant six lights was not only a dagger which contained mere hatred. It was also filled with rejection and exclusion. Next, there was the curse of eternal damnation, the devil-devouring dagger. This was the embodiment of true hatred. Its black glow seemed to be drawing strength from all sorts of negative emotions within Huo Yuhao. Lastly, there was a brilliant golden light. This almighty light entered from the top of his head as it penetrated through his entire body. It was the all-penetrating dawn, the holy radiance dagger. It embodied the power of radiant light. At that instant, everything seemed to come to life as all negative emotions were embraced and converted by the power of love. Yes, it was love, the most powerful emotion among the seven. All seven emotions were now interconnected as the seven legendary daggers returned to Rong Nianbing. It was evident that Rong Nianbing was sad to part ways with his beloved daggers. However, he decisively waved his hand as all of them combined to form a ball of light. The ball of light was then released into the starry sky above them. This video will end here.